Jamspricka nummer 1 is a climbing route in the Gothenburg area that I have quite a long history with. Already early in my climbing career, I saw that there was a 3-star route in the guidebook described as a pure hand jam crack. At that point, I had only seen some YouTube videos from like Wide Boys and similar, showing off these jamming techniques. So I was pretty curious about what it actually meant to climb a pure jam crack, but this route was also graded 6A+, which was still quite a bit harder than what I could even top rope back then. However, I got the chance to climb some other routes that had crack formations, so I could try out these jamming techniques, sticking in my hand and squeezing. And I started to understand how you could load your hand without having a proper hold to grip, just relying on, what should I say, the camming function of your own hand, basically. And a couple of years ago, a friend, Lurre, and I climbed another route to the top of this whole crag. So I thought, okay, here is my chance. So we walked over to the top of Jamspricka nummer 1. And the thing is, it starts up on a ledge 30 meters above the actual ground. So to get to the start, you have to rappel down along the crack. And like, rappelling down that route, it was so scary. There's like nothing else to hold on to except this crack. There are no jugs on the sides, no ledges to stand on. It's just this one crack, you know. And it wasn't as perfect as I expected either. It flares out, meaning it's wider on the outside and narrower deep in the rock. Which means if I just stick my hand in shallow, the size of my hand isn't enough to keep me stuck on the rock. I have to reach further into the crack, and I was realizing all this as I rappelled down, and I was thinking like, oh shit. All the while, Lurre was waiting up on the top because he wasn't too interested in climbing here, and also it was getting pretty late. So this was something I was doing on my own. So I climbed the whole route on what we call top rope, where the rope goes up to the top of the route and Lurre belays from above. And that means I can't fall far. If I let go, I'll just hang right there. The crazy thing is, the time I spent on that wall, while Lurre was belaying me, was like one of the wildest climbing experience I had had to that point. Almost every other time I've climbed before, it was on pretty gentle rock, kind of slabs sloping inwards, like a steep hill. But this route was absolutely vertical. Like, it felt like a whole new experience. I couldn't stop and rest on any ledge or anything. It was just one move after the other, after the other. And after a few minutes, I reached the top. And I was just completely lyrical. In my mind, I was in Yosemite, which is a national park full of these kinds of crack climbs, just way taller. The cliffs there are hundreds of meters high. This one is 25 meters. But the fact that it was vertical and there was just this single crack formation made it really feel like a few meters of Yosemite in Gothenburg. And that was just my dream. So right then and there, I knew I wanted to keep working on this route. Because even if you finish it on top rope, as I did, from a climbing ethics perspective, you haven't really completed the route until you lead it. And since this is a crack route, there are no fixed bolts. So leading this means placing your own gear as often as you like to avoid a fall. That's much harder. Placing your own protection takes quite a bit of time. If there's a bolt, it's easy to just clip it, but if you have to place a cam, or even worse, a knot, you have to fiddle it into the crack, maybe attach an extender, and only then you can clip the rope into a carabiner and keep climbing. And when I reached the top that first time, I was completely wasted. So trying to lead this would take a lot more, but I really wanted to do it one day. The next year, I was there with another friend, Bob. We set up a new top rope on Jamspricka nummer 1. This time I hung some gear on my harness and tried to place it as if I were leading, but I still had the top rope as a backup. That actually went pretty well. I worked my way up the crack, but near the top rope got jammed deep inside the crack, and by that point I was so tired that I couldn't really wiggle it out without letting go. So what happened was I ended up giving up on that climb, let go and sorted out the rope while I was just hanging there. So that was kind of a disappointment, because then I didn't know if I could actually lead this route or not. And even if I had managed to do what we call mock leading, that's no guarantee that I'd actually be able to do it for real. Besides the mental aspects of leading, when you mock lead, you can place a piece of gear that is not great, that looks uneven or doesn't just feel solid. You can just place that, accept it, and keep climbing. But if that gear is actually to hold for a fall, you're going to have to adjust it. You don't want to place bad gear on lead. That can be straight up dangerous. So I got to try climbing Jamspricka nummer 1, but it didn't really give me the confidence that I needed to feel like I can lead this. Anyways, a few days ago, Bob and I went back, this time with no top rope. So down on the ground, or on the ledge rather, where the route starts, I racked up all the gear I thought I'd need, and Bob tied into the rope to belay me as I climbed.
Ja. Ja, nej men fucking go for it.
Ja, nu händer det. Herregud. The first part of the route actually isn't that pure jam crack I've been talking about. You start on a big freestanding block, climb up to a crappy slanting crack. That's where you can start protecting. And you sort of wiggle your way up with different techniques to get to a birch tree growing right in the middle of the route. Above this birch, you're standing beneath 15 meters of pure crack. The good thing here is that you can take as much rest as you want, because there are big stones to stand on right below the crack. Jag har lagt av lite grejer här. Then it's time to go for it. The first bit is probably the technically hardest part, because the crack is super wide and flaring at the start. You can't really get either a hand or foot in for the first 1.5 meters. So you have to hang from your hands high up and work your feet on tiny knobs on the side until you finally can get your feet into the crack. Before, I had used a tree here, pushing my feet against the birch to get up the first bit. But even though that's kind of allowed in many areas, it didn't really feel right. So now, when I was leading for real, I felt like I've got to stick to the rock this time.
Klipper!
Then the methodical climbing starts. Foot, foot, hand, hand. Foot, foot, hand, hand. At first it felt pretty good. I had really dialed the crack technique at this point, so I could take some weight off my hand onto my feet, chalk up, and keep placing gear as I went. But about halfway up the crack, I started to feel really exhausted. And something happened mentally. Instead of thinking, where's the next hold? How do I place the next piece? These kinds of thoughts upward, I started to think downwards. Can I hit the birch? How far is it to my last piece? Can I take a fall here? Will it be safe? So it was really like demons in my head. Luckily, I had my belayer Bob down there shouting things like, not much left now and come on! And stuff like that, so I could keep going. But just to make things worse, when I reached for the next piece and tried to shove it into the crack, it went in not even at all. And I was like, oh damn, do I really have to stop here and mess around with this piece? But I had no choice, so I kinda had to swap hands. And in the few seconds I could hang from one hand, I tried to fix the piece with the other hand before I had to switch and try the same thing with the other hand. finally, it ended up in a spot where I felt, yeah, that's definitely good enough. Then there is one small hold outside the crack where you can finally rest your jam muscles and use your grip muscles instead. And then you get another kind of good rest with a perfect fist jab. So I could place another piece of gear here. I kept going, and near the end there's another hold, like a jug outside the crack, that I knew about from climbing this route a few times before. Somewhere near the top I remember placing a blue cam, which basically is the biggest piece of gear I had. And it didn't feel good at all. The lobes weren't nearly as even as I would have wanted, but by then I was so pumped that I thought, I can't really stay and fix this. I'll just have to keep climbing and hope that I wouldn't have to take a fall on that piece. And if I did fall and that piece popped, I just hoped that the next one would hold, basically. The next one was good, but you know, the longer the fall, the more force goes to the next piece, right? And in the end, there's just a matter of mustering the energy to mantle up to a ledge 2 meters before the actual end of the route. And when I finally got a leg up on that ledge, I felt like, yes, the crack is over. Not much can go wrong here. But I didn't want to celebrate too soon, because there's still a couple of meters left before reaching the actual top. Yes! I did it!
Fuck yeah! Fuck yeah!
This route that I saw in a guidebook like 9 or 10 years ago and have wanted to climb ever since. I did it!
Fuck yeah! Let's go. Oh, let's go.
And like, this is not a mega classic or anything. It's not the nose on El Cap or Century Crack. But for me, it's my first long-term project. And it felt kind of like a rite of passage in crack climbing for me. So, what's the moral of this story? I don't really think there is one. This was just a bit of fun making a documentary style video. It's not as serious as I make it up to be at all. It's just a really fun route, you know. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video, please click like, and if you'd rather see something else, hit dislike and leave a comment with what you didn't like and what you would like to see in the future instead. And if you really want to see more like this, you can of course subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!